This video is not intended for children.
Hello everyone. Our topic this week was requested by Ninjammer726, Malik Angel King, and Michael Schenk. We'll be going over Isaac Clarke from the Dead Space franchise. As he is the protagonist of the main games, massive spoilers ahead for the entire series. Duh.
Okay, so Isaac Clarke is the horrendously unlucky bastard who has the misfortune of being the protagonist in the Dead Space games. For those who've never played them, think of the series as being a collection of those horror movies that never end well, and this poor guy was smack dab in the middle of all of it. The games take place in the far-flung future, with Dead Space 1 picking up in 2508. Decades before that, however, Isaac was born to a relatively normal family. His father was an engineer and ship design specialist who was overseeing projects for almost Isaac's entire life, and has since gone missing, never to resurface anywhere in the franchise. So he was raised by his mother, who at some point became a unitologist, a religion formed in large part as a result of the black and red markers that create the necromorph problem, which act as a central part of the game series plot. For more information on the necromorphs and the red and black markers, see our video on the necromorphs here. As he grew older, Isaac followed in his father's footsteps and became an engineer. Academically, he qualified to attend some of the most prestigious universities available, but his mother put most of their money toward funding unitology, and thus Isaac was forced to attend less prestigious institutions for his schooling. He didn't let that stop him though, and became a fully fledged, well-respected engineer, which is how he ended up on the mission that would ultimately lead to the worst moments in his life, up to and including the possible extinction of the entire human race.
Dead Space 1 begins with an emergency response unit arriving to investigate a mining operation that had gone dark. Isaac was the engineer assigned to the emergency response team. Not by coincidence either, his girlfriend, Nicole Brennan, was assigned to the mining vessel at the heart of the mining operation, and resultantly, Isaac had volunteered to be a part of the rescue mission. When Isaac's crew arrived, they found that the ship and the colony were unresponsive to hails and proceeded to dock with the mining ship, only to discover that the vessel was overrun with necromorphs. Necromorphs are essentially horrifying super space zombies that are created in the proximity of red and black alien markers. All this is explained in more detail in a necromorph video, but for our purposes, these markers are alien devices designed to create necromorphs. That is technically their primary purpose, but in order to ensure that the markers aren't destroyed and that more markers will be made, thus spreading the ability of necromorphs to form, they also act as generators of nearly limitless energy, making them the sort of devices that people want to replicate so that they can have unlimited energy. The markers also generate a sort of psychic field that affects the living creatures around them. The primary goal is to affect those of high intelligence, implanting within them both the knowledge and drive to create red markers. This field also has the useful side effect of inducing hallucinations, paranoia, and violence in the minds of those without the necessary faculties to create red markers, which creates an environment more likely to lead to the creation of necromorphs, though those given the knowledge of marker creation do commonly lose all sanity as well given enough time.
The colony had unearthed a red marker on the planet they were mining, and things spiraled downhill long before Isaac and his rescue team arrived. Thus, when they docked with the mining ship, which involved the rescue ship being damaged, ruining any immediate ability to escape, they were almost immediately set upon by necromorphs, the remains of most of the ship's crew. Because this is a horror game, Isaac spends most of the game separated from his ever-dwindling number of crewmates, because fighting horrifying monsters is much scarier when you're effectively a civilian and you don't have any backup. Though he becomes pretty hardcore by the end of the series, he doesn't exactly start out as Doom Guy. With almost everyone dead, the operation overrun by previously unknown alien pathogen/species, with communications down and their ship broken, Isaac and company's primary goal is to survive long enough to repair an exit strategy. So, as the resident engineer, Isaac spends much of the game running around repairing various important pieces of machinery to either send distress signals or, once that fails, to repair an escape vessel. Along the way, he loses every one of his own crewmates, while also encountering, trying to save, and watching as the few remaining mining crew die. He even encounters his girlfriend, Nicole, the two working together multiple times to proceed, though they do not reunite until near the end of the game, where it is revealed that Isaac has been affected by the psionic field from the marker, and had in fact been hallucinating Nicole's presence the entire time, as he acquires a video log that includes film of her death, which happened well before Isaac's rescue team even arrived.
Despite the deaths of most of his comrades and the betrayal of his last living crewmate, Isaac survived the ordeal, escaping in a shuttle, while the results of his escape caused a catastrophic reaction in the planet, wiping out most, if not all, of the necromorphs on the planet and mining ship, as well as nearly destroying the marker. The game ends in true horror movie fashion, with Isaac alone on his escape ship, seeing a hallucination of a dead Nicole assaulting him. Eventually, though, he's picked up by a rescue crew and transferred to Titan Space Station for observation. For 3 years, Isaac was confined to a psych ward while local government officials probed his brain using this nightmare machine, as well as the brains of other necromorph encounter survivors, in order to gain the information needed to build a red marker. The mining operation from Dead Space 1 involved a process called planet cracking, which essentially meant that entire planets were broken down into raw materials and then sold for use across interstellar human civilization. It was believed by the station commander and others that this was simply unsustainable, and thus they saw in the seemingly endless energy supply of the markers a chance to save humanity from its burgeoning energy crisis. Ergo, Isaac and others were kept in this exceptionally off-book and illegal research project, and probed and drugged into a near super while a marker was built. As you can imagine, since we're talking about it, this led to a necromorph outbreak on the station, which is where the events of Dead Space 2 begin. Isaac was broken out of his drug-induced imprisonment by unitologists who wanted the knowledge of how to make markers for themselves. Again, the religion is very heavily influenced by the markers themselves, but he manages to escape, only to find himself in the middle of the aforementioned necromorph outbreak.
In addition to trying to contain the outbreak, the station head put out orders to have Isaac and the rest of the project subjects killed in order to contain any information leaks. So, while trying to survive necromorphs, Isaac also found himself dealing with hit squads coming after him while on the station. During this mess, Isaac makes contact with a scientist who was a fellow project detainee like himself, who informs our protagonist that he knows how they can dismantle the marker and put a stop to this necromorph problem. Along the way, the two encounter Ellie Langford, a pilot who almost begrudgingly develops a friendship with Isaac. The three of them sneak and battle their way through the station, moving toward the heavily guarded core where the marker had been built, killing necromorphs and guards along the way, while also dealing with the station head doing everything in his power up to and including slicing off chunks of his own space station in order to keep Isaac and company away from the marker. Oh, and Isaac was still seeing hallucinations of his dead ex, Nicole. So there's that. Before they can complete their journey, the scientist's sanity degenerates completely, and he assaults Ellie while Isaac is separated from the group, taking out her eye in the process. In return, she kills him. Now, just the two of them, Isaac and Ellie literally drill their way into the core, ruining the station head's defenses and allowing necromorphs to flood the core area, partially to protect themselves from assault by the guards. At this point, Isaac tricks Ellie into starting an escape shuttle and then launches it with her in it, while he proceeds to go ahead, certain that shutting down the marker would be the death of him one way or another. After sticking himself into the aforementioned nightmare machine in order to remember crucial information on how to take out the marker, or killing himself if the player sucks, Isaac proceeds onward to a final confrontation with the station head and the projection of Nicole. He defeats them both, seemingly restoring his mental stability or at least shoring it up for a time, and destroying the marker in the process. Which was good, because the station was large enough that enough necromorphs had gathered to jumpstart a convergence event, a process that consumes all of the life in the area and creates a brother moon, the highest known form of necromorph life. A giant living tentacle moon monster with incredible intelligence, the ability to direct all necromorphs within a certain, presumably enormous radius, and the ability to communicate with its fellow brethren moons across vast distances. Thankfully, Isaac destroyed the marker before the process could be completed.
Much to his surprise, Ellie came back for him, blasting through the roof and giving Isaac an escape ride out of the station as it went up in a massive explosion. The game then pokes fun at both itself and audience expectations by recreating the final scene in Dead Space 1, but rather than being alone and having a hallucinatory monster assaulting him, Isaac is left only with Ellie in the co-pilot seat.
What?
A much lighter ending. 3 years passed between Dead Space 2 and Dead Space 3, and in that time, Isaac and Ellie date and even live together for a while before Ellie breaks it off due to Isaac's inability to face the issues that his two traumatic experiences with the necromorphs have left him. and the problems that raises in their relationship. Dead Space 3 begins with the discovery that Ellie had continued working on dealing with the necromorph problem and gone missing investigating a planet. Two of her comrades, a scientist she'd begun dating in the interim, and John Carver, track Isaac down and enlist his aid to go after her, save her if possible, and solve the problem she obviously found if not.
Uniquely in the series, Isaac gets to have a partner in this game in the form of John Carver, who can be played by a second player cooperatively throughout the campaign. The trio tracks Ellie's last known location to an old ice planet, with a civilization seemingly frozen in place overnight. In the in-game years since the Dead Space series began, many unitologists had ridden up in arms to help the cause of the necromorphs, with varying reasons found within their tenets to support those actions. As such, throughout this game, Isaac and John deal with nearly as many unitology zealots as they do necromorphs. They find Ellie, crash land on the planet, and begin investigating what they believe to be the origin world of the markers due to the prevalence of markers present on the planet, as well as a constant signal being broadcast which they believe to be calling the necromorphs.
Despite setbacks, including Ellie's bow going nuts and having to be killed at Isaac's hands, and Isaac and Ellie somehow rekindling at least the embers of their relationship in the aftermath, which we're not touching with a 10-foot pole, Isaac, John, and Ellie discover that their initial presumptions were wrong, that the planet belonged to a different race of aliens, not those who created the markers, and that they had managed to freeze their planet in place in the middle of their own convergence event. Furthermore, they realized that the moon orbiting the planet was a partially formed brother moon, which meant that they shouldn't be shutting down the machine they thought was sending a broadcast because it was the only thing keeping the brother moon frozen and incomplete. Unfortunately, the Zealots learned this information as well and set the moon free. Isaac once again set Ellie off in an escape shuttle, though this time she went willingly, and he and John headed out to try and restart the freezing engine and maybe take out the moon if they could. They ended up succeeding, causing the partially formed brother moon to fall to the planet's surface and die. Ellie lost all contact with them and presumed they'd died since they'd gone in on foot to handle the issue, and there really shouldn't have been any way to survive the brother moon's death. As such, she left the system, returning home alone.
The duo did somehow survive the fall, however, and proceeded to fight their way through necromorphs and increasingly deranged zealots in order to secure and repair some kind of functional spacecraft so that they could leave the planet. Along the way, they both began suffering heavily from the hallucinatory effects so often accompanied by the markers, even going so far as to engage with hallucinatory versions of each other. Things come to a head when Isaac begins thinking that the two of them heading to Earth could lead to the rest of the Brethren Moons, who'd been communicating with them via their hallucinations, to Earth and doom humanity. But ultimately they decided that the Brethren Moons were just trying to stall them and that it would be better to head to Earth and give them a warning. Only for Isaac and John to arrive in orbit above Earth to the sounds of a necromorph infestation in full swing being broadcast on any channel they tried to contact, along with a small host of Brethren Moons encircling the planet. It would seem that they were indeed too late to save humanity from the necromorphs. Though admittedly there are so many hallucinations in this final segment that the validity of any and all events are called into question, including whether or not that final segment, their slog through necromorphs and zealots, or their flight to Earth were real or just psychosis on the part of our heroes.
And that's basically Isaac Clarke, dubiously blessed hero of the Dead Space series. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a like and maybe share it with someone you know might like it. If you have ideas for videos you'd like to see in the future, do like Ninjammer726, Balak Angel King, and Michael Shank, and let us know in the comments down below. If you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, be they lore, let's play, or other, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.
In the meantime, this has been True Masters and Morons, signing off. Thanks for watching this video. If you'd like to see more like it, hit that subscribe orb.
To see our last Let's Play, click or tap the link on the right.
For our last lore video, click the link on the left.
Thank you to all of our patrons for making these videos possible.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.